Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm discussing 5 questions it might be best to avoid asking parents of autistic people and what to ask instead, from my perspective as a special education teacher and parent of an autistic child. The first question is one that floors me every time. Is your child getting any better? This question can act as a double-edged sword. The word better implies that there is something wrong with your child that they need to recover from, while the wording also indicates that autism is something that can be cured if you work hard enough. Autism is a lifelong, complex developmental condition that results in the brain developing and functioning differently. You cannot cure it any more than you could cure your eye colour, though interventions can have significant positive long-term effects on an autistic person's skill development and ability to reach their personal goals. All children are constantly changing, improving, learning, developing new skills, then sometimes regressing. All children, including autistic children, have areas of strength, and in many cases, autistic children are gifted with exceptional skills in at least one particular area. An autistic child's development is going to be completely different to that of a neurotypical child, who, by the way, will have their own unique development that may or may not follow typical milestones in the usual order. But in a nutshell, would you ask an apple if it's getting any better at being an orange? Another tricky question is, why did she or he just ignore me? This is another hard question because the majority of the time, people asking it have genuinely wanted to engage with my daughter out of love. Autistic people communicate and interact socially in a different way to neurotypical people. Remember, the brain develops and functions differently when you are autistic, impacting how autistic people engage with others, even those that they love, cherish, and care for deeply. But there are several reasons that an autistic person might ignore a social offer, the most likely being anxiety. Autistic people often experience anxiety in social situations. This can be because they have difficulty interpreting the body language, gestures, facial expressions, and nonverbal cues of others, or because they're unsure how to engage in a way that's considered appropriate. They might have been burned in the past if they've been overly friendly or perceived as blunt or uncaring or standoffish, which has resulted in their confidence in social situations being shaken or even shattered. Autistic people can also struggle with the theory of mind, that is, the capacity to read, predict, and understand the mental states and perceptions of other people. If you can, for a moment, imagine someone that you have seen before but don't know well enough to predict their words, actions, or intentions, suddenly approaches you, talks to you, gets close to you, and perhaps even asks you to do something. You might react hesitantly, fearfully, or even rudely, depending on the interaction. Predictability is calming for autistic people, while unpredictability equals anxiety. Most people, especially those outside of a familiar routine, are unpredictable. Isn't she too old for visuals? I once heard an autistic woman say that to take visuals away from an autistic person is akin to taking a walking stick from someone with a limp. The list of positive impacts that using visuals can have on an autistic person's world is long. They can promote communication, independence, comprehension and understanding, increase predictability, add welcome structure to daily routines, lower anxiety, explain sudden changes, support motor planning and executive functioning, encourage participation in social activities, and assist in social skill development. There can be a misconception that visuals are a support that should be faded out over time, but visuals are not a pacifier or a cuddly toy. They are like a pair of prescription glasses. You would never even consider taking away a person's prescription glasses. They're a tool that allows them to see, read, and function just as well as a person who has perfect vision and no need for glasses. The same goes for removing visuals from an autistic person. To do so would be to disable the person. What will happen to them when they're older? In my opinion, this is the hardest question ever to be asked as a parent, any parent. If you're going to omit any one question from your vocabulary, please let it be this one. No parent knows what's going to happen to their child when they're older. We're all just doing our best and hoping, praying, wishing for the best possible outcomes and happiness for our children. This question taps into every single middle of the night worst fear that any parent has ever had about their child's future. Avoid at all costs. Is autism an excuse to behave this way? The first thing that comes to mind when someone puts this to me, alongside the knee-jerk feelings of shame, embarrassment, and belief that I'm doing everything wrong, is another question. Does this person not realize that I'm constantly asking myself this? Because I do, and I think every parent does. The added layer of having an autistic child is, what is the consequence of stopping this behavior right now? If I make a sudden demand about this, whether it's stopping a child from snacking before it's officially time to eat, removing a child who's getting too close to someone in a social interaction, or allowing a child to wander instead of sitting with the group, what will happen next? A meltdown? Will we have to pack up and leave? Or, even worse, if I jump in, will it result in shame and confusion on the part of the autistic person because not enough explanation and preparation has gone into approaching changing this behaviour right now? As parents, and I also put many teachers of autistic people in this category, we are in the best position to gauge when it's time to tackle changing or reducing a particular behaviour. Before you pose this question to someone, remember that you don't know what happened right before this moment, nor what event is coming after, or what is likely to occur if there is a sudden demand that this behaviour must immediately stop. You also don't know what huge gains the child might have already made in this area, likely as the result of a consistent team approach involving professionals such as an occupational therapist, speech pathologist, pediatrician, specialist teacher, and/or psychologist. I'm sure that the last thing you want to do is diminish hard-won behavioural achievements by asking a question like this. Most parents of autistic people are walking a fine line of attempting to teach appropriate social skills and correct community behaviours in a way that is meaningful and comprehensive, balanced with the right level of discipline that preserves a child's self-esteem and self-confidence. So what can you ask instead of these 5 questions? This is actually quite simple and easy because it's likely that you've had lots of practice. Ask exactly the same respectful, thoughtful, genuine questions that you would ask a parent about a neurotypical child. This gives a parent permission to be as general or as specific as they like. As always, please feel free to leave me any questions or comments below. Until next time.